So today we are seeing what it takes to modify the ribbon. So hopefully there's an assignment. Actually, I guess the assignment isn't actually due until tonight. Hopefully you've done it before class today, because this is the tool that we will be relying on heavily to be able to modify the ribbon. We'll talk about that here in just a moment. In fact, if you haven't installed it yet, we are going to be talking about some other stuff before we get to that tool. You might go ahead and try to install it right now here in class. So let's start off just by taking an existing assignment file. I've got a lot of Excel files here on my desktop. I wonder if any of these are like assignment files. I want to look at something that's got an existing ribbon modification built onto it. None of these look like assignment files. So let me just go ahead and open up an assignment file from my educator. Hello, my educator. Any assignment file will do the trick. I'm sure I must have one here, but this probably will be faster. Student menu, assessments. Maybe I'll do that parse email address that we did so early on. Here it is, parse email C7. And I'll just put it in my documents. Maybe I'll make a folder for this ribbon. Okay. So there's some things that are quite unusual and quite unexpected about the file format for an Excel workbook. It turns out that beginning in 2007, the Excel workbook file structure, prior to 2007, it was a binary format. It was like a proprietary format, and it was Excel's own kind of magic that used that file. There was no way that Microsoft intended you to work with an Excel workbook outside of Excel. But beginning in 2007, they said, you know what? We're going to use an open standard for keeping track of these files. So much so that we're going to publish how people could modify Excel workbooks without even needing to have Excel open. Have some other tool that would automatically create and modify and do amazing things to Excel workbooks. And so the format of this file is actually a zip archive of XML documents. You're familiar with what a zip archive is, right? You take a folder and you compress all the files in that folder down into one file. That's what an Excel workbook is. That seems like such a strange thing to say, but watch this. Oh, first of all, to do this, if you want to follow along with me, and what I'm about to do, you can sit back and watch just as well as do it along with me. If you want to do it along with me, you're welcome to. I'll try to pace it so you could follow along, but you won't need to build on what we're about to do here for the hands-on part of the class today. So let's start off by saying, listen, you need to have the extension showing. So if you're not showing your file extensions, I'm going to take you through how to show that here in just a minute. Let me zoom in first. A little bit larger here. Just thinking about it, trying to zoom. I would think that zooming wasn't that difficult to do. Right? Windows plus. Okay. So here in my Windows Explorer, I'm going to choose the View menu. And from the View menu, I'm going to choose Options. It's a little bit too big. Options. I'll bring up another window. I guess we'll leave it normal size. And on this folder Options menu, I'm going to choose View. And then right down here, there's a checkbox, Hide Extensions for Known File Types. I'm going to uncheck that, and then you'll be able to see your file extensions. And this checkbox is not for you. This checkbox is for your mother or your grandmother, who might look at a file and go, wait a minute, I didn't want that to be called expenses.xlsm. I just want it to be called expenses, and she might come in here and delete that. I don't know what that is. She'll delete that. You know better to delete an extension of a file, so you're okay seeing them. But I'm a little worried that Edna or someone might delete that by accident. All right, so now I'm going to do something that you probably should never, ever do, except unless a trained professional is telling you to do it. So remember, the Excel workbook file is a zip archive. Excel knows how to deal with it. It knows all about it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the XLSM to ZIP. Now, under normal conditions, this would be bonkers to do. You can just take any old file, turn it into a zip file, just by changing it to ZIP, and then look at it. I want to extract that. You can't do that. But that's the native format for Excel. So when I do that, well, first of all, Windows is going to complain. If you do this, you might not be able to use the file. That's okay. Anyway. Okay, so now it's a zip file. I'm going to extract it. I'm just going to right-click and choose Extract All. And extract. And by default, it opens up a new window. I don't need it. Okay, so now I have the zip file and I have the folder that was extracted from that zip file. While I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and rename that back to .xlsm. I still want that file around. I just want it to be able to extract it. And so now, let's take a look at what it extracted. So I'm going to go into this folder. Oh, you know what I want to do? I want to put some data in here that we'll be able to find. Okay, so pause, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this again. So let me delete this folder. Open up this workbook again. And I'm going to put some data in here just so we can see where that data actually ends up going. Okay, so the question is, what is XML? XML is an extensible markup language. We're going to take a look at it here in just a bit. But it is a way of presenting structured data. So this is data that has a very clear structure and meaning, and it's a way of marking that up. The markup language, ML, is saying it's data with information about the data built in around it. So first, let me go ahead and take this parse email files. This is just one of our built-in assignments, one of our assignments that we worked earlier in the semester. Now, one of the things you've noticed from the beginning of class is that every assignment I give you has a tab built into it, a tab in the ribbon. That tab is not installed on your machine. That tab is just a part of the workbook. So when you open that workbook, that modification to the ribbon comes along. As long as that workbook's active, that's how it shows the ribbon. And we're just trying to wait for Excel to open. Okay, so here we have the assignment tab and the tools you're used to working with. What I want to do is I just want to put some data here on sheet number 1. I'm just going to put just some text here in column A, alpha, beta, gamma, and put some numbers in here. 10, 20, 30, 40. Okay, so I'm going to save that file. I'm going to close the file. And let's go ahead and then take a look at this file. So I'm going to very quickly just extract this file again. So I'm going to rename the file from XLSM to ZIP. I'm sure I want to change it. I'm now going to extract that file. And then I'm going to change the name back from ZIP to .xlsm. Okay, so now we're ready to take a look at the file structure that we actually have that we just extracted from. So I'm going to come in here and we say, I could go into that folder. It was just the name of the file before, it's how it extracted it. And it says, wow, we've got a few folders here. One of them is called Excel, short for Excel. I'm going to go in there. And here now we have a folder called Worksheets. Now our workbook had 3 worksheets. When I come in here, I see, I've got 3 XML files, sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3. Let's take a look at sheet number 1. Now I've got this set up to open in Notepad++. The truth is, this might open better in a browser. So let me see if I can easily open this with. Open with. And so I'll just use Internet Explorer, which does a pretty good job with XML. Okay, so here, this is that worksheet folder. So what did I do? I put in, here's B1 has the value 10. Here's B2 has the value 20. B3 has the value 30. So this structure is just showing what values we have in which cells of the workbook. Now I put some Greek letters in there, alpha, beta, gamma, mu. Where are those? And the answer is text numbers come into the workbook, but text doesn't. So we're saying here at A1, I've got number 0. A2, I've got number 1. A3, I've got number 2. Well, where are those coming from? And the answer is, those are coming, go up one level. There's another XML file called shared strings. And so the workbook itself says we are going to put text. Sorry, I was going to open that in. Well, we'll look at it here. Let me just do a word wrap on this. We are going to put, let's see if I can find it here. Here is a collection SI. Maybe I can format this XML. Stand by for this minute. Plugins, XML tools, pretty print. So I've got some text, alpha, beta, gamma, mu. So this shows in its own file. And if I had alpha, beta, gamma, or mu showing somewhere else, it would have a reference to the text and wouldn't duplicate the text all throughout the file. It's just a way of keeping the file a little bit more compressed. For this reason, sometimes if you have like a bunch of data that has text in it and you have it as an Excel workbook, maybe it's a lot of data. Maybe you've got 20 or 30 megabytes in that file, and you were to extract that or save it as a CSV file, which doesn't do any of this compression, it could be 3 or 4 times the size just because of the duplication of the data. And so, depending on how much duplication there is. So the point is, this is just an archive of XML documents that we use to keep track of everything about the workbook, including the ribbon modification. So let's go take a look at that ribbon modification. I'm going to come up a level, so I'm at the same level as my Excel folder. Here's the Excel folder. And I've got one here called Custom UI. So this is the custom user interface. So I'm going to come here into the custom user interface, and I'll see here's custom UI.xml. Open that with Internet Explorer. And so this is the definition of the ribbon. What do we have? The instruction sheet. That's one of the buttons you're familiar with. We've got one called Submit. And on this particular one, we've got one called Get Email Address and Process Email Address. And so this structure here is actually the instruction that says we've got a modification of the ribbon. When Excel opens the file, it goes, oh my gosh, there's a ribbon modification. And it looks at this file, it tries to see if it can understand it, it changes the ribbon according to the instructions that are in this file. So, the bad news for today is that this is what we have to work with to be able to modify the ribbon. It's ugly, and it's picky, and if I accidentally delete something like that, it's broken. I got to track down and find out where that is. It can be tough to track down. The really good news about today is that this is really, really difficult, which means no one else can do it. Wherever you go, and you'll learn how to do it today, but wherever you go, you'll be like the only person that knows how to build a ribbon modification into the workbook. That's pretty good. You will impress your boss and get your first raise because of ribbon modification. All right. So, it turns out that when Microsoft changed the file format to this compressed XML file format in 2007, you know, we're reading, those of us who are Excel developers, we're reading the documentation. This is a big change to our lives. We're reading the documentation, and we're kind of excited about the ribbon, and we can read, they say, oh, you're going to be able to modify the ribbon. We're so excited. We're waiting for you to tell us how to do it. And this is what they said. Take the Excel file, change it to say ZIP, extract it, create a file that says custom UI.xml, put it in this folder, type in this stuff, And we went, you're kidding. You're joking. Really, you're joking. And they said, no, we're serious. That's how you do it. You're developers. Suck it up and do it. And, we don't want your mom doing this. This is for you to do. And we thought, well, maybe by 2010 release, they'll have some custom tool for it. No. How about by 2016, they have some graphical tool? No. This is how you do it. Fortunately, someone said, you know what, we could write a program that does the heavy lifting here. That extracts the file, puts in the structure that you need, and makes this a little bit easier. And that's the tool that you download. So, let me get back to Learning Suite. Anyway, hopefully you've got that installed, that custom UI editor installed. But I don't even know who wrote it. It was not made by Microsoft. It's a tool that just does what we did in class. Change the name, extract it, look at the different files in here. Folks, if you open it, if you were to do that process with a file that did not have a custom UI interface, a custom user interface, this folder just wouldn't even be here. So it's not like it's there in case we need it. It's not there unless there's a ribbon modification here. And so that is what this other tool does. So I'm hoping I have that installed here, custom UI editor. So here's the custom UI editor for Microsoft Office. So we could open up this same file in the custom editor, the custom UI editor, but I think I would like to start from scratch. So that way we don't have different versions of the file. So I'm going to come back to Excel and make a brand new workbook. So File, New, blank Workbook, and I'm just going to save it. I'm going to save it as an XLSM. Can you have a ribbon modification in an XLSX workbook? Yes, you can. But you are limited to a ribbon modification that just uses existing functionality in Excel. You'll see here in just a moment that you can say, well, you know what? I'm making a new tab, and on this tab, I want to put an existing group. I want the font tab to come onto this new tab, or the font group to come onto this new tab. You can do that. And so it makes sense at some level to say, I want to have a customization here, but you're limited to kind of reorganizing what's already there. If you want to add your own functionality, it's got to be an XLSM, because that's where your VBA sub-procedures are going to be. So I'll make this an XLSM, and I'll save it as ribbon. Call it ribbon 1. We may or may not ever make a ribbon 2. Okay. Once I've created that brand new workbook and saved it as an XLSM workbook, I'm going to close it. Because I'm going to open that very same file in the custom UI editor. So, file open, and I'm going to go find that same file. So I put it in something called ribbon, and ribbon1.xlsm. Here it is. The Excel workbook is open here. I cannot edit the cells in this workbook. It is only for, or in this tool. The Excel workbook really is open here, but it's only open for the process of customizing the user interface. By the way, this is the same tool you would use if you wanted to add a ribbon modification to Word or to PowerPoint, not to Access. It's a different process at Access. So here it is. Now, there is no ribbon modification here. If there was, I would see something coming off this tree right here under ribbon 1. So let's see how to actually put a ribbon modification into this workbook. I'm going to choose the Insert tab here. And the very first two choices here are an Office 2007 custom part or an Office 2010 custom part. Seems like we're going back in time here. Turns out, in 2007, Microsoft was kind of their first time out of the gate with this new ribbon. They call it the Office Fluent Ribbon Interface. And it was a big deal. It was really different. But as is common with any kind of first generation, after they had it for a while, they went, oh, we could have done some things better here. And so when the 2010 release came out, they changed the model a little bit. And so you choose, how about when the 2013 version came out? They change it? No. 2016? No, it's the same. And so you've got the two formats to choose from. Folks, if you put an Office 2007 custom UI part here, it will work in any version of Excel from 2007 on. It just doesn't quite have as much capability as the 2010 version does. The truth is, anything we're doing today would work just fine in either 2010 or 2007. So we're doing some pretty simple stuff. Well, let's add the 2010 custom UI part, just because the example that we're going to be copying in is expecting that particular one. The truth is, you can put both of these in. In that case, if you open it in 2007, you would get the ribbon from the 2007 part. If you open it in 2010 or later, you would get the other one. So they can both be here. But 2007 is old enough, I think we can just ignore it, at least for our purposes. So I'm going to select the 2010 custom UI part. So now I can see custom UI 14.xml. Custom UI U14, custom UI 14. There. I'll select it, and it's blank. I mean, it's even kind of hard to realize that this is the file open right here. So I can just start typing my XML in right here. Type it away. Don't ever type this stuff. You want to copy it from somewhere else and modify it. Unfortunately, this tool is going to give you some starting point here. So now that I've inserted the custom UI part, I'm going to come back to Insert, and I'll choose the sample XML. I'll choose Excel, a custom tab. And we'll just select that, and that will bring in the XML for making a custom tab in Excel. And it really is this ugly. Here it is. So you can see here's ribbon customization, custom UI. This tells us something about how to interpret what we have here. And then we're looking for ribbons. So from ribbon to /ribbon, this then contains the modification of the ribbon. That suggests to me that there may be something else that I can modify besides the ribbon. I don't know what it is. The only thing I've ever seen modified in the custom user interface is the ribbon. Inside the ribbon, I'm saying, there's a set of tabs. This is the collection of all the tabs. Everything inside that tab/tab tag is the tabs. And now let's look at the first one. Tab, ID, custom tab. So this is saying I've got this is going to be a new tab. The ID, every tag I make here has to have an ID, and those IDs have to be unique for anyone else, for any other tag in this XML file. The label here then is Contoso. I don't know what Contoso means, but it shows up a lot in Microsoft examples. So that's what they labeled. And then here is a little parameter here that says, where do you want to put this? This says I'm going to put it after the Microsoft object identified by tab home. So where is this tab going to show up? Home, and then this tab. You go right in there. It's going to say Contoso right on it. It's then going to have a group. Inside the tab, we've got a group. Now, something interesting here. This group tag, so far we've seen these, ribbon/ribbon, tabs/tabs, tab/tab. This group does not have a closing tag. This is what's called a unary tag, no closing tag. Let's look at it. It is saying there's a group tag. It has ID MSO. MSO stands for Microsoft Office. And so what we're saying here is that we're not defining a new group here. We're just bringing in an existing group. Which group are we bringing in? The clipboard group. That's what this group is. We're not putting anything new in it, and so instead of having a separate tag down here that says /group, which we use sometimes, we just put a slash on the end of the tag. And that tells the XML parser, don't look for an ending tag. This tag closes itself. And so we're seeing we're making a new tab, tab/tab, everything defined between the opening and closing tag is part of this tab. We're bringing in a group, clipboard group. We're bringing in the font group. We'll leave those there. Now, instead of group ID MSO, just group ID. This now is a new tab. I'm sorry, a new group in the tab. It opens with group, and it closes with /group. Let's look at the closing tag for the closing bracket for the opening of this group. It starts here. Here's the opening tag. Here's the closing tag. There's no slash before this one. That's because it's a binary tag. It's expecting to find a /group coming after. Okay, so we've got to get a little bit familiar with the XML, and not too much more familiar than we already are. Inside this group, then, well, we've given it an ID, and we've given it a name, Contoso Tools. Let's change it. Let's not call it Contoso. I'm going to change the label of the tab. Instead of Contoso, I'm going to change this to, turns out my wife teaches yoga and like meditation and such. So why don't we call this the meditation tab. And this group here, instead of Contoso Tools, I'm going to call this breath activities. All right, so now this should say meditation tab. This group should say breath activities. And let's get this down to just one button. Right now there's 3 buttons in here. I'm going to delete the second 2 buttons. So that I have just inside this group, I've got 1 button. Opens with this brace. What do you think? Am I expecting to see a slash button to close this tag? No, because this tag closes itself. The slashes are part of the same tag. It has an ID. Custom button 1, that's fine. It has a label. I'll call this one Inhale. My wife could probably actually tell you real like practices to do with breathing. Calm yourself. But probably limit to inhaling and exhaling. Those are activities I can describe. Now, the button itself has 2 sizes. It can be large or, any guesses? You might think small, but not small. It's large or normal. Large or extra large. Large or normal. So we'll leave this one large. Now, on action. Everything on action is going to specify. Sub procedure to run when the user clicks the button. So instead of con bold sub, I'm going to call this X inhale. I put an X in the front of every procedure that I call from the ribbon. This is actually called the Ribbon X interface. And so it's nice to be able to look at a procedure and go, oh, that's getting called from the ribbon. So it's just a convention. You can call this whatever you want, as long as it's a valid sub-procedure name. All right, now I've got this image MSO. There's a couple different ways that we can get images, choose the images from our buttons. The first way is to refer to the identifier of a built-in image. There are hundreds of images built in that we can use. And that's what this first way is. So let's go ahead and see that. Now, back in Learning Suite, I've given you a link to a public Google photo album that I created that has all these images in it. So let's take a look. So, Learning Suite, I have to authenticate again. And we'll go to today. So, MS Office image names. So I'm just going to click on that. And it really is it's just a Google photo album. They're kind of big to look at here, so let me zoom out a bit. So here they are. So I'm looking for something that really captures the essence of exhaling. I don't know. Exhaling is kind of like recycling air, so I'm going to choose this recycling. It does not matter which one you choose. Now I'm all zoomed out, so it's kind of hard to see. Oh, wonderful. That's the name. So I've named these individual images with the names of the identifiers. So this one happens to be ADP diagram rectangulate page breaks. That's the identifier for that image inside of Excel. You could pick any other one, as long as it's a valid one. You can leave the one that's there. I'm going to change this from bold to copy and paste ADP diagram rectangulate page breaks. Case matters, by the way. So that should define that button. Now, I've got 3 more groups after that custom group, which I'm going to delete. So this just gives me 2 custom groups that are there, and then the group that I'm creating with 1 custom button in it. Now, it is really easy to make a mistake when you're just working with XML. So, fortunately, there's a little syntax validator here. So this button right here will look at your XML, and it will tell you if you have an error. If you have an error, it'll tell you something about where the error is. Otherwise, it'll tell you it's well formed. Does anyone have an error in their XML when they check it at this point? Check. And if you have an error, now's a good time, because Jaren's just itching. Come and look at someone's XML. Oh, all right. Okay, now one more thing is that when that button tries to call the xInhale procedure, it is going to, well, this is inhaling, not exhaling. Should have a different picture. Anyway, that's okay. So, not only is it going to call that sub-procedure, but it's going to send an argument to it. So we've got to set this up just right. Fortunately, this tool also gives us a way to generate the callbacks for the VBA. So I'll click on this button. I've only got one. It's called xInhale, and it's saying, listen, this thing is going to send a reference to an iRibbon control. And so it's going to give us that sub. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. I'll click back on my custom XML file over here, and then I should be able to save. So clicking on the callbacks, I'm copying this. I'll need this code. It turns out Microsoft is has taken a lot of effort to make it so it is impossible to inject VBA code into an Excel workbook unless you have the workbook open inside of Excel. And so they don't want this other tool, whoever wrote it, they don't want it to be able to modify the VBA inside this. They don't want this program to be able to modify the VBA. So it can't just put this in the workbook, but it can let you copy it and paste it into the workbook. And that's what we have to do. So I'm going to choose File, Save, and that will save that workbook. It's like tempting to leave it open and go open it inside of Excel. Don't do that. Close it. You don't want this workbook open in 2 places at the same time. Excel will let you do that. Don't do it. So close it here, File, Close. And then I'm going to go open it again in Excel. And if I've done everything right now, I should have a meditation tab just after the Home tab in the ribbon that has those 2 built-in groups here, the clipboard and the font group, just the way they're defined elsewhere in the ribbon. But now I've got a group called Breath Activities, and one is called Inhale. If I click on it, I get an error. Cannot run the macro xInhale. Why not? I haven't put it in here yet. So open up my code editor, find my Ribbon 1, insert a module, and paste that code in. I'll do a couple of things here. So message box. Breathe in. That's how you inhale. Instructions on how to inhale. But you'll notice that the reference here, something that's being passed in here, this is a reference to the object that was clicked on. Which button did the user click on? It's right here. I have a reference to it. Now, there's not a whole lot I can do with it. Let me do a debug.print, and I'll just say control dot. Okay, you got 3 things. You got a context, you got an ID, and you got a tag. What was the ID of our custom button? It's like custom button 1. So I'm going to print that into the immediate window, and we'll put up the message box. So here's my meditation tab, inhale button. Now when I click this, it should run this sub-procedure. It should first print something here in the immediate window, and then it should show up the message box, breathe in, and it print custom button 1. In the course textbook, the author goes through an example where he creates one sub-procedure to handle all of the buttons in his ribbon customization. He just uses a case statement to say which one was clicked. Oh, that was custom button 1, do this. It was custom button 2, do this. It was custom button 3, do this. Here, we'll create a sub-procedure for each one that we make. But that's it. That is the basics through this process. It is open the workbook using the custom UI editor, add the custom UI part, copy your example from somewhere, don't try to type it in, and then make your modifications. Create the sub-procedure that calls, and then you should be good to go. One way to get an image into this ribbon is by using the existing ribbon object names. But I might want to have one that looks quite a bit different. And you can put the image, you can put any image in you want. So let's take a look at how to put in a custom image. I'm going to go ahead and save this workbook and close it. And we'll open it up again in the custom UI editor. And let's make another button. Here's my first button. Let's zoom back out. I'll call this one custom button 2. Instead of inhale, I will call it exhale. I'll leave it large. On action will be X. We'll just call it exhale. Exhale. I'll call it exhale. Now, an interesting little thing here is that when we were bringing in an existing Microsoft Office thing over here in the group, the identifier was ID MSO. Same thing here. The identifier for an existing image is image MSO. If I want to bring in my own group, I give it an ID minus the MSO. If I want to bring in my own image, I give it an image minus the MSO. So I'm going to change that to just image. And now I've got to get the name of my image here. But before I can refer to the image, I've got to actually put the image into the file. I've got to put the image into the zip archive. Here's proof. Come back to my extracted one. I'm going to come into the custom UI. There's a whole folder here called images. And these are the custom images that are in that workbook. They are just files sitting here in the archive. Fortunately, our custom UI editor knows how to insert an icon. Let's go find an icon first. First thing you know about the icons you're going to put in here, their native size is 48 pixels by 48 pixels. So I'm going to come back here to Google, and let's just see if I can find a picture of Buddha image, Buddha icon. I'll look at the images. And the nice thing about the Google tool here is that under Tools, I can specify the size, and I say I want this to be exactly 48 by 48. So Tools, and then size. I've got some here that look like some guy that knows all about breathing. How about this guy? I'll just right-click that image, choose Save Image As. Instead of calling it download.png, why don't I call it, looks kind of like a Swami. Swami. Okay, so now I've found that. By the way, we're just doing this for educational purposes, so I don't really care what the license is on this. But over here, we can actually specify the usage rights, labeled for reuse. None of them are. There are no Buddha images that are labeled for reuse. So, if you're doing something that's commercial, you'll need to find an image that you can get rights to. I don't mind using that one here for this educational example. Question?
What happens if you use a file that's different than 48 with 48 pixels?
Okay, so what if you used one that was different size? The answer is the custom or the ribbon is going to scale it to the right size, and so you're probably okay. It just won't look as crisp if you choose one that's pixel for pixel, just placing the pixels. Okay, so now that I've saved that file, I should be able to come back to my custom ribbon editor, choose Insert, Icons, find my swami.png, And I now have a little plus next to my custom UI XML file, and the Swami now is in here as a part of this. And so I can now use that name. Incidentally, I can change the name here if I want to from Swami to something else. Swami is fine for me. But that will be the name of my image. So here on image, I will just put in Swami. So I'm now looking for exhale subprocedure. Should have a different image. It should say exhale. I have to have a different ID. I've got a different ID. I'm going to leave the ID the same here for just a minute. I'm going to change that back to custom button 1. It's exactly the same as this one. And when I go to validate this, it's going to say, hey, custom button 1 already uses an ID. So it's telling me I've got the error there. I'll change it to a different name, validate it again. It looks well formed. If I want to, I can come back and look at the stubs. It will have regenerated one here. But I've already got what this looks like. And the thing that's hard to remember is that it's going to take something, some variable, as an iRibbon control. Well, I've already got that in my code. I can just copy the other procedure, so I don't have to worry about it here. So I will save and close. Go back and open this file in Excel. And now my ribbon has the 2 buttons on it, including my Swami here that says exhale. I will look at my code, Alt 11, and I will copy this. Exhale, this is breathe out. And now that one should work as well. So, meditation, exhale, breathe out. You can see it's also printing the ID here as well. Questions? Yes?
So would the image size have to change if you were to change the size of your button?
So if I was to change this to a normal size button,
Yeah.
let's go ahead and do that real quick. And what you're going to see is that the image size it'll automatically scale. It just won't look as good as if you had one that was that native size. And the truth is, I'm not sure what size those little ones are, but we could track that down. So when we close this, save it. I'm just going to come and change both of these buttons back here to be, instead of large, I'm going to set these to normal. Save, close, reopen. And now my meditation tab, there they are. So I get 3 per row when they're normal size, and I only get 1 per row when they're large. So it's, I don't know. It doesn't look too bad. Could look better. But they behave the same. Now, folks, I want to point, it's way beyond, in terms of difficulty, it's way beyond what we're going to do here in this class, but you have the ability to create drop-down lists, checkboxes, basically anything you see in the ribbon, you can do that with ribbon customization. They are way more complex. I wonder if I have one on this computer that I can show you. Anyway, I've only done it a couple of times. But let me point you to the resource for this. So back in 2007, when most of us were wondering, you're kidding me, is it really this hard? There was a guy in the Netherlands named Ron de Bruin who was busy trying to figure it out, and when he got it figured out, he published a good website on it. So I've given you a link to the Ron de Bruin website on Ribbon Modification. And so this really is the go-to page for saying, I'm going to do some stuff with Ribbon Modification. This is the place to come and take a look. So you'll notice he's pointing you to the custom UI, or to the Excel, or the Office custom UI editor. Gives a little kind of background on this. Talks you through some of these things. Oh yeah, this is his favorite example here. The happy face. There's actually, this is a built-in icon to, I think it's just called happy. Folks, if you ever open up an Excel workbook, there's a ribbon modification that has a happy face that says click me, and you click that button, You deserve whatever happens to your Oh, look, it says click me. I'll click that. Okay. So here's some more ribbon examples, files, and tips. I'm going to follow this link at the very bottom of this kind of introductory page. And here then, he's got lots of actually workbooks that you will download. He's got whole galleries of icons so you can kind of see these. We just went to a web page because that was convenient, but if you download this, all these images are built into the ribbon. You know, like drop down the ribbon, it shows you all the images here, and it gives you the names of everything that you want to work with. Oh, this one's kind of fun here. Let's just do this. So it turns out you might decide, you know, that ribbon just gets in the way. I'd like to get rid of it altogether. So there's one here, show the ribbon, show or hide the ribbon. So I'm just going to copy those 2 lines of code, come back to my workbook, and I'll paste that code in. It's actually going back to a very old approach here. It's an application. The application object has an execute Excel 4 macro. This is not even VBA. This is like macros that happened in the 1990s, the early 1990s. And so there's a show toolbar method that you can specify the ribbon. And so this is going to actually make the ribbon go away. You know, you're tired of the ribbon? Great. You can execute this. Gone. No ribbon. Excel still works the same. You just don't have any ribbon. When you get it back, well, you can show the ribbon. There are not many times when you want to get rid of the ribbon altogether, but when you do, it's nice that you can. So let me just point out one more thing here at the Rhonda Bruin site, is that it even, from the very bottom of this one, examples for a drop-down in the ribbon. So he's taking you through how to do drop-down lists, and it is quite complex. You need to create separate callbacks so that when the ribbon first loads, it has to say, well, what's going to be on the list? You can hard code the list, but you might want that list to be dynamic. Look at your workbook and figure out what should be on the list. You've got to have a separate callback that when the ribbon displays, it goes, oh, I got to call something to figure out what's going to be on the list. You just got to send the information back in the right format. And so it's more complex than we're going to cover, but this site will take you through and doing all that more advanced stuff. So the way to do more advanced things that we're covered, in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you a way to do it that's even simpler, that avoids the XML altogether. That's the good news. The bad news is it's not going to work for all of you. It'll work for about 90% of you. And for the ones that it won't work on your computer, I'm not sure why. Let's take a look. This will be another link that we have back in Learning Suite. And so it's called the Ribbon Wizard 2. I think it was Martin Luther King Jr. Day in 2012. I was sitting in my office wondering, what shall I do today? An idea came to me. I said, you know, I could probably do all this stuff that we do with modifying the ribbon. We could probably do that from VBA inside of Excel. And so I wrote a workbook that would allow you to apply ribbons to other workbooks. And that's what the Ribbon Wizard 2 is. Internally, it's called Ribbon Foundry or something. I'm going to download that and open it. I'll go ahead and open it. I'm going to close my other workbook because I don't want to mess with the ribbon that we just had because I want to post that example. Okay, so close Ribbon 1, save it. Here is the Ribbon Foundry. Enable edit. Some instructions here, probably several misspellings included at no extra charge. Temporary. So some various questions here that you might be interested in. Here's the idea. The idea was, what if we could just take a tab in the worksheet and then format it with the information that we would need for a ribbon? So items are in groups. So this is going to create a tab called Information. There are going to be 2 groups on that tab, one called Time Services, one called Random Numbers. Each one of these buttons is going to have an image. That image is generated from the image that's in the workbook. You want to add a new button or take one of these buttons off, just delete the row. Or add a new row at the bottom here, put the group name, actually put an image onto the worksheet. Whatever text you want to show for the label, put that here. Size can be large or normal. You've got to give it an identifier. This is going to be the ID for the tag that gets created. And this sub-procedure text is just what I need for this example. You'll write your sub-procedures in the VBA. There's also a table here, or a tab here defined as data. Data is an existing tab in the ribbon. And so anything I put here on this tab is going to just add on to this ribbon. Because there's no information tab in the built-in ribbon, it's going to create its own tab. But if I choose the name of an existing tab, it'll just add these groups to that ribbon. So all I have to do now is open up the workbook that I want to apply this ribbon to. So I'll do File New. I'll choose a blank workbook. I'll save it. I think this will crash and burn terribly if I haven't already saved the file. Because it has to save and close this file. It needs to have that it has to be in a place. I'll call this one Ribbon 2 as an XLSM. All right, I've got my other workbook here. I'm going to choose the Ribbon Foundry. Show instructions just shows that first page. Show samples, I think just shows the information page here. Validate identifiers and make sure we don't have any two identifiers that are the same and make sure they're valid for this. Okay, select sheets then just says which of these sheets that you have defined down here do you want to be. You can have lots of tabs defined, but for the ribbon I'm about to create, maybe I don't want to push them all into that workbook. And so select sheet just says which of all these ribbons you have here do you want to go in. They're both selected. We'll use them both. And I'm ready to create the ribbon. So I'll say create ribbon. It says you've got a bunch of workbooks open. Besides this one, there's one called ribbon 2.xlsm. That's the one I want. And I'll choose insert ribbon. When I do that, it'll close the workbook. It'll extract it. It'll build the files in the right place. It'll rezip it back up. It'll reopen the workbook. It should create an information tab and put two groups on it with these buttons. And on the data tab, it should put whatever's there. So it'll take, I don't know, 10 or 15 seconds to run. Now here's Ribbon 2 XLSM. Here's an information tab. All those items are in it. There's no code here yet, so if you follow that, it'll say, sorry, we can't run that. When we come look at the data tab, here's this row highlighter group. Again, no code here yet. But we should be able to just kind of copy those procedures in. So we open up the code and insert a procedure, a module in Ribbon 2. I'll come back to the Ribbon Foundry. And actually, when I'm here on the data tab, I should be able to say copy code stubs. That just copies the data out of column F. And we'll paste that. Doesn't work so well at all. Let me try on the information. Copy the stubs. It's not working for me. It's okay, I'll just do one. I'll do the local time. Oh, I'll do the to go. This will report the number of minutes to 5 o'clock. So the idea here is how much longer until 5 o'clock, and that will tell us. The trouble is they're multi-lines, and so they come with quotes around them, so we've got to get rid of the quotes, and it gets a little bit messy. And we got double quotes, you got to get rid of. Quote, replace it with single quote. That should be valid code now. The point is, I can now just create these sub-procedures. Actually, I think if you create a new one, it will create the stubs for you in here. No code in it. And now I should be able to go back to my other procedure. What was that first one? This is time to go. So I should be able to come to my information tab, hit to go, and it should execute that procedure. 19 minutes until time. So for how many of you actually tried to follow that example with me? Keep your hands up. How many of you failed? Like you had an error while it was running? So yeah, about 10%. So I don't know what it is, but I'm making calls to a couple of different Windows objects. The ones that I would expect your computer to have. So if it works, great, it's there. If not, you've got kind of the standard curve to do. Any questions on modifying the ribbon?
Are the images embedded into this tool that you created?
Where do these images come from? And the answer is I found them on the internet just the same way we did. How did I get them in here? Insert, illustrations, pictures. Actually, I might just copy and paste it. Like if we said copy that image, paste it here. And as long as it's roughly in the area of that line,
Okay.
it tracks it down and goes, oh, there's an image there. It'll export it as a file, put it in the right place, and
Wow.
just got to get the image wrong. Okay. Thanks for coming to the penultimate class. Our ultimate class will be on Wednesday, and we'll be covering automating the solver, so doing optimization. Thanks for coming. Class dismissed.